Absolutely. After a wonderful session with Peter. Thanks everyone for being here. David and I couldn't decide what we were going to talk about really, so we're going to make it up as we go along. Shall we start with your childhood and when you were born and what life was like as a baby, David?
No, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
No. Actually, it's a bit scary, this, because not only is Ruchir my time, I see other people in the audience. So this would be a disastrous afternoon. And if it's somebody would get up and go, at that point, you know, I can just shut up and stop.
No, David, we first heard about David when the story, legendary, you can tell us whether it's true or not, whether when he got the manuscript of Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things and he caught the next flight to Delhi and said, don't move till I get there, sign nothing. Then he met her and made a promise to let him be her agent, and then went and got these fantastic deals and then the fantastic success of the novel. That was the first time we heard of David. Other people like the writer Nayantara Sehgal was edited by David when he was a kid, which is something people don't know. That before he was a poacher, he was a gamekeeper. So the first question I would have for you, David, really is, how do you do the switch between being an editor? Why do you decide to...
Okay, I think you can ask me some questions first, then I will ask you questions.
So you can do one each.
Okay, that's fine. Well, actually, I had no choice. I mean, I was running my professional career has been basically a story of sackings, which is not big. I used to run a publishing company called Jonathan Cape, which is a fantastic company in London. And we had extraordinary freedom to take on all the books we wanted the way we wanted, which was important. You know, if you feel strongly about something, you want to do it. And then they decided to introduce their set of committees, one particular committee, whereby you'd have to go to this committee and there would be publicity people, sales people and so on, and you'd have to make your case for the books you believed in. And I thought, well, I don't like doing that. But the second, what I don't, the heart of the problem is publishing houses in instances like that want books to be like other books. And actually, I've actually always been interested in what books, why books are not like other books. It just seems to be more interesting. So that was all came to grief, so I was fired from that, which is fine, and it was the right thing to do. Then I became, in a way, okay, you asked me about being an editor. I think in a way the experience is the same. You know, you read books, you try and make sensible suggestions to writers, whether you're a publisher or an agent. So I think that the practice is the same. The only great advantage, of course, as an agent, you just deal with writers. I mean, you deal with publishers because you sell books to publishers, but your day-to-day life is with writers, whereas your day-to-day life for the publisher is with your colleagues, you know, salespeople, production, and so on and so forth. And it's just, in the end, wasn't the right thing for me.
Right. Your turn.
Right. Well, this is also about the relationship between Ruchir and me. That's basic. Now, I think probably he should just... The nature of my relationship with Ruchir about the past 12 years has been, about this time, I say to Ruchir, send him an email, dear Ruchir, how's the book going? And then I get a reply from him, okay? And he says, pretty well. I think it'll be this year. So, I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to turn to him and say to him, for real, Ruchir, how's it going?
I'm not telling you. No. Truth is, David almost never sends such an email. He just leaves it. I land up in London, sheepish, call him up. Oh, hi Ruchir, are you in town? Shall we have a drink? Shall we have lunch? Meet for coffee? Yeah, let's meet. And that's when he says, oh, you're still writing the book? Yes, the book. Yes, how's it going? And then I say, well, I'm working on it. And look, the truth is, I met David through Vikram's sister, actually. Vikram Seth was sitting back there. Because she knew David, and I said, well, after Arundhati and all this, would he be willing to look at another manuscript, or the beginning of another manuscript of a novel? This was in 1997, I think. And I sent some first two chapters of my novel to David, and he read them and said, come over, let's have coffee. Very, very friendly, very unassuming. The first thing I thought about him was, he's an Englishman, but he doesn't have he's not a wanker. Like sometimes people, especially in the art world, whether they're commissioning editors or I imagine agents or what, talk down to you. There's one agent I do know, I shall remain nameless, older than you, very famous, who leaned forward to me at a literary festival one day and says, David's not really doing right by you, come to me and I'll sort you out. Look at this guy, you have no idea, go away. So he was very unassuming, very friendly, and I didn't realize the steel underneath, but if you want an agent, David's the agent, we all give him license to kill me, Vikram, the others, and he goes and does all kinds of missions that I cannot describe to you because they're confidential, but there's blood on the floor, there is seamless violence. You get slit-eyed, David, when you go into publishers' meetings. Like Bond always has his eyes turned into slits, and a ruthless set on the mouth.
You have a big pussycat,
right. No, it is an interesting relationship because, and David now seems to be specializing in people who don't deliver their books on time, Vikram sitting right there. The first book that I did with David, great reviews, whatever, but did not burn the bestseller list or the Booker Prize shortlist or anything, but it was well received. And the second book, we signed a contract with HarperCollins somewhere around 2002, 2003, I think. And it's taken a while to write. And David has been a huge support. There's never once been, either from David or Karthika, who's now my publisher, any pressure at all about, nobody's telling us, what the hell do you think you're doing? This is becoming a joke. So the books take time. Writers are supposed to be late with their books. The only worthwhile books take time. Don't worry about it, keep going. Do you do this with all the writers who are late, or do you kick some butt sometimes?
I have had arguments with publishers about books being late. But alas, I don't do books that are on time. I just don't do anything like that. My only responsibility is to ensure the books are as good as possible. That's all. And I think I did actually feel as a publisher, and I certainly feel that as an agent. So I set the dates. I don't have any sense of dates. I just wait till the book is done, and that seems to be the only, especially the kind of books that I do. They just got to be as good as possible. And people should take as long as they have to do them. I just get a bit edgy about it sometimes, but that's okay. I don't know.
So we were talking about, David, you pointed out that looking at some writers somewhere, you realize that these writers are professional writers. They do nothing but write. You can imagine them getting up in the morning, having a shower, sitting down to write, breaking for lunch, doing the whole day's work, X amount of word count. They finish the book, they deliver it to the agent, and happy agent, publisher, book does well. While they're working on the publicity of that book, they've already got the next 2 novels planned out, etched out, and they get back to work immediately. And then there are other people, say like me, others could maybe better describe them, who are not like that. What is the difference between these two kinds of writers?
Well, I must say my instinct is to go for the kind of messy ones, rather than the professional ones. Because I just don't think, I just find it a bit scary. And I know I've sort of seen writers, so I shan't mention his name, but he used to go to his room, at Hobbs and I, with small children, and shut the door, and the children would be outside, and they'd be crying, okay? And the door would remain shut. Now, okay, everyone has their own response to that, but my response, you've got to find some way, I think, not to be personally quite as ruthless as that. I slightly feel a bit nervous to say this actually, but I think and I think one of the reasons your books are late actually, is actually you're not that kind of writer. You get caught up in all kinds of people's lives. You're a terrific friend to a lot of people, and I think that's to your. I don't want this conversation to be too self-congratulatory here, but I do think that being able to commit to your friends and your family and your kids, and, other things, whether it's calligraphy or whether it's. I just think it's important. It also makes the books richer, I think, because the experience of the world is deeper, more complicated. So that would absolutely be. I'd much prefer to go down that road. In which case, then if they're late or they're different when they turn out to what people thought they would be, I think that's fine. I mean, I just think it's got to be good. In fact, actually, the only actual question about any book, is it any good, is for me the only one. And actually, for all the talk of everything else, I think that's the only one.
Yeah, I think it has to do with, I often wonder how this, again, I've got some very good friends who are very regular, turning out novels, and the novels are good. But I think some of these writers, I think, spend more time writing than actually experiencing life. Whereas for me, I'd rather grab the experience of life, and in the interstices, if I manage to, write something or turn something out, it's great. If I can make a film, that's great. But yes, of course, you have to be passionate. You have to, as Garcia Marquez said, if you can live without writing, don't write. Well, for me, there are several days when I can live without writing, and in those days, I don't write. But in the days I can't, I have a little picture of David in front of me, and I get down to work.
Actually, I always wanted to devise a scheme whereby I could access the writer's computers from my office. So I could just go into Ruchir, and I could find out how far, how much he has written or not written, or what it was like.
Follow each keystroke. No, I don't suggest this to people in London, David, because you may not, but there'll be somebody else who'll have it in the contract next time, that this editor has a right to have access to your computer all the time. How much time are you spending on Facebook? What porn are you watching? How many emails you're writing to your lover? And how much you're working on the book? And why did you write that sentence? No, that's not right. Go back to it again. It will happen. Where do you think publishing is going, David? This is the question. It's very different in India.
I think it's a bit of a problem, actually. I have to say, I think what's going on now is you've got these big publishers coming together. They're getting to be extremely powerful. There's lots of money around for the people who, in a way the people who really got money. I think they're getting more insistent about what they want and how they want it and when they want it. I think that's a terrific problem. And I think it'll actually get worse. Perhaps in the near future that will happen. I think in the longer term, it may well be that as these publishers, as there are fewer of them, it'll force more smaller publishers. I mean, the story of Aleph is a good one. I mean, the independent publishing company that's kind of come, David leaving Penguin, setting up his own publishing company, that seems to be a very, very good thing. And that may well be what will happen increasingly. But I'm watching these companies, watching editors being slightly pushed to one side, they're less important than they were, watching the fringes, as they would call these large global empires, whether it's India. I mean, I think India is less important now for originating talent to big publishers. I think it's important for distributing books. And now that historically, all the Indian companies probably went through London. Now, increasingly going through New York. And I think New York publishers are really seeing this as a place they can shift more of their own product, as they call it. And I think that's a real worry. And it's not just true here, it's true of South Africa. So that those which were historically great energies of new work from the fringes, I think it's going to be harder. And it's only, we have quite an African list, we have people from South Africa, because I think sometimes the most interesting work comes from the oddest. South Africa's not an odd place, but we do very few novels set in London or England, because in a way those stories have been told, I think. So actually you want different stories from different places, and I think you've got a slight mismatch between the way talent's where it is, how it comes to fruition, and these kind of monolithic publishing houses where editors are getting less important. And I think there are exceptions, and that's a very broad sweep, but I don't feel as good about it as I did before.
What about the internet and e-publishing? How does that change your, how
Well, it's a tricky one, really. Well, clearly it's very, very important, that there are many ways for people to do it. And I think for people who want to get books published and can self-publish, I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's really good. People so their work can be made available. I think the problem is, there's a big kind of issue in publishing houses about how much they pay writers, about ebooks. Ebooks cost you nothing to make. And there's a kind of monopoly amongst publishing about what the percentage is to do it. And that's a big problem. And I was with someone who ran a large publishing house. She was telling me that She has, under her, she had, when she ran it, they had 50 accountants producing the figures for the management and the higher management every single month. And she said to me there was no way they could ever give writers 50% of ebook, because they would bankrupt the company. Because the level of overhead is so large in these places that actually they couldn't process it, so their hands are hampered. And it's when they go to the offices, it is completely insane going to some of these offices. I mean, most of the publishers don't want to be in these offices. You've got incredibly expensive offices, you know, in order for some sets of people. I mean, huge floors, I've been there, these guys, you know? And the editors are given less than this. So the ridiculous thing is the editors finish up working at home. So the whole thing is completely mad. And yet the overhead structure is so great that they can't, in a sense, get the right percentages to the people. So that's another question. But basically, I think it's obviously fantastic that people can get on. I think there's a slight illusion though, and I know, you know, I'm not a Twitter fan of Twitter, for example, but and the problem is, I think, I was
switching on the lights.
Give me lights. No, I think the problem is, I think writers, about the whole business about whether writers should know their audience, and there's some section of publishing that's very important. Other people, I think Twitter is a kind of mystery. So I'm a bit puzzled by that. So I don't understand that part of it, but when it's simple, I understand.
Your turn.
Yeah. Are you on Twitter?
No, I'm not on Twitter. And my Facebook is controlled by a secret program which doesn't allow me to go on Facebook for longer than an hour at certain specific times. And if you believe that, you'll also believe that I'm ready to take test ticket for India right now. No, I'm not on Twitter.
I mean, a lot of writers are. But that's not here.
It's bizarre. I mean, there's a famous, very well-known Gujarati poet called Sitanshu Yashas Chandra. He once told me when I was very young, I wasn't planning to be a writer. He says, if you ever want to be a writer, don't write too long, don't write very long letters to your friends or your parents or your girlfriend or anything, because all the stuff that you want to write kind of is a limited amount that you can produce, which is good. And if that goes into a postcard or an inland letter or something, then you lose it. So hang on to what it is and save it for your actual work. Now, I don't know if this is strictly true, because I do freelancing, I do, you know, I do write long emails to friends sometimes, Facebook comments as well. But I think Twitter is something that can really bleed me. Like for someone my generation, my narrow attention span, if I get into a Twitter fight with someone from being trolled or something, that would take up my whole day, which something like Facebook doesn't do.
One thing I'm always kind of interested in is actually whether writers take as much trouble and care on everything they write, or whether there is, I'm always sometimes very interested how exquisitely written some emails to me are, and how much care people take. I'm incredibly sloppy. I mean, I really, you know, I rarely write them for any length. They're not terribly grammatical. I'm actually increasingly become more embarrassed by these things. I think I know what to say. I don't feel. But do you try hard? I mean, Vikram, for example. I mean, you know what I'm saying. Writes fantastically careful. You don't mind me saying this, Vikram, do you? Yeah. But Vikram went to Doon and I went to Mayo. I think it's an important difference. They had nothing to do in the mountains except polish their grammar and stuff. We had sport and UK's boys and stuff like this. So it was a far-rounded education. Language kind of mattered. My grammar only improved. With you really. So my grammar was awful when I was a kid. I was good in English in school, but grammar wasn't particularly strong. No, I'll tell you, to answer your question, I write 1, 2, 3 columns for the Telegraph in Calcutta. I do other freelancing stuff as well. And then there's of course the emails and stuff is separate business, but occasionally a friend will call up early in the morning, irate, saying, I didn't like your writing today, I didn't like what you wrote today, or somebody said it's not your usual level. And I try to explain to people that, you know, if you're writing columns regularly, there's no bloody way that you can maintain that same level of excellence by the control of language. So the columns will vary, the
freelance pieces will vary. Some will be really good, you'll think, oh wow, I really pulled out all the stops for that. The other one was, I have to get it in for the deadline because I need money for whatever, booze, whatever. So it varies. Emails as well. Some people very careful emails, long emails. Other people laconic, punning in 4 languages, obscene, not a comma inside. It varies.
Do you interrupt people? Do you know the difference between less and fewer? Do you know the difference between less and fewer? Do you say, when someone says to you, there's less apples, you say no, it's fewer. Do you say that or
no? I deliberately screw these things up now because I had a huge fight with Philip and the line editor of my first novel, the lucky guy, about which and that. You know, where I had lots of whiches in my manuscript and the guy kept changing them to that. And I have the marked up copy of my corrected Word document. And I was running a score for this guy, I was saying, which is winning, which 3, that 2, 0, that 0 chapter. Because I really think we Indians speak English in a different way. It's kind of grammatical, I think. You can understand what he's saying. But fewer, lesser, sometimes we'll do things like, this is more bigger than that. Now, we laugh at that. But you know, there are times when it makes more sense to say, yeah, that is more bigger than that.